We are live.
We are live.
We are live. Good afternoon. I was going to say good morning, but we already did that class this morning. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for everyone for tuning in, everyone online, everyone here in the classroom. My name is Derek Infiesta with Absolute Home Mortgage. If you guys have been following along month to month, we've been doing classes to teach the realtors and just give everyone a little brief of education on our side of the business as lenders. New programs we've been putting out, also new guidelines have been coming out since January. There's been a lot of changes. So today we kind of want to discuss our process, right? Because you guys, most realtors, and I've come to find out most realtors, they hand us documents and they're like, cool, see you next week. We're going to sign our loan and we're done. It's a little more tricky than that. So we want to go into a little more detail today and go over that with you on what your expectations should be from us. That way everyone's on the same page because communication is key. So today I brought Miguel with me. Miguel is one of our processors for Absolute Home Mortgage. He's actually our in-house processor, so he is located at our corporate office on Australian. So Miguel is there pretty much every day. He is going to be joining the team here at Partnership 2 days a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Tuesdays and Thursdays.
You can actually find him here in the office. So he'll be working directly with Enrique and kind of going through a lot of the steps and documents here. So I want to kind of go just right into it with everyone here. And as the process goes, if you guys have answer any questions for you, you can type them in the chat. Obviously, you can raise your hands and we'll answer any questions that you guys have. So again, it's very important to communicate and give you the full spectrum of what we do and what we offer. So going through the process, and I'll go through this quickly, and then we're going to have a slide for each individual part. So our pre-approval process is just the first step. Everyone brings your documents. Then we disclose it. We order an appraisal. We underwrite. We go to loan processing, underwriting. Then we go through the quality assurance, which means we just kind of go through the paperwork, make sure our last checks for it, and then we have a closing. And the problem is a lot of you think it goes that fast. So we want to make sure that you guys, again, we set a standard for the time it takes to do a lot of these processes. Miguel's going to go over a lot of detail with you in these, and I'm going to go over a couple of things that I need as a loan officer to get you going. So first is our pre-approval process. So our pre-approval process is pretty simple. All we're asking for is most of the documents to hand it to us up front. And again, why be approved? Coming from both sides, and I'll explain both sides, why it's important. As a realtor, you want to make sure your new clients are pre-approved, right? We want to make sure that you're not driving around the county, showing houses for individuals who either can't afford that house or who just don't have the credit to purchase it. There's obviously a lot of different factors, but again, you're wasting your time. Unless that person finds a house and it closes, none of us are getting paid hourly for this. So it's very important that we pre-qualify your clients and make sure everything is up front. So we want to make sure people are serious. We want to make sure that they have, the assets to close and things like that. So it's very important to get pre-approved. Now, as a realtor accepting offers, it's very important to look at these pre-approvals, make sure they make sense. And the best way I can explain that to you, if you're a listing agent and you want us to help you with your listing, I'm happy to look at all your offers that do come in and help examine through your DUs or examine those pre-approvals and make sure those clients are viable and they're great for you. And that way, if we need to step in and help, we can at that time as well. Our next step here is our pre-qualification versus our pre-approval. So I'll show you again a couple different things. So our pre-qualification is I'm getting the basic borrower information, where they've lived in the last 2 years, where they've worked at for the last 2 years, how is their credit. I asked them, about how much do you have for a down payment, which is very important. You want to know if someone's trying to buy a home for $500,000 but only has $10,000 in their bank account or $5,000 in the bank account, it's going to be pretty difficult to get those loans approved because of down payment and asset purposes. So we need to go thoroughly and just kind of get a rough estimate. Now, I like to kind of skip that and go through a full pre-approval. I like to make sure that my clients are verified, and that's the difference between some companies or some lenders, some in between myself, someone like Miguel or Enrique or Javier, someone in our office. We want to get all the information we can up front. I want to make sure I review these documents. I want to make sure I collect the bank statements. I want to make sure that I've looked at the taxes, gone through the P&Ls. We want to get as much information as possible, because what I don't want to do is provide a pre-approval letter and then that file doesn't go anywhere. We can't close that file because I didn't do my job in advance and get those documentations for you. So I think it's very important for us to do as much work ahead of time and get that all out of the way before we go through and actually hand you a piece of paper. So we don't want you to lose your deposits. We don't want you to fall into those kind of situations. So it's extremely important for us to get as much information up front as possible. Then you'll go through what's called a DU process. So if you're a listing agent and you're asking people to give DUs, or if you're you're bringing your client DUs to a listing agent, we want to make sure what's involved in that. So a DU is your full approval. That means I've collected everything, I've sent it to our Fannie Mae guideline, and we did a DU presentation last time as well, and you got an approved eligible or an accept, which means you're able to purchase that home, and I've qualified you for X amount of dollars, putting X amount of dollars down, and I based it on your credit information, your job history, and things like that. So DU gets a little more in depth. It's basically what the underwriters use to process the file. So it's very important that we have these, and it's very important that we review these. Now, again, if you're a listing agent and you have DUs that come in, and you call me and say, hey, Derek, I have a DU. Can you please review it or help me look through it? I can verify that some of this information is correct. Now, DUs can be, you can mistakenly, hit different information that's wrong. You can enter into, stuff that just doesn't look right to make some of these things pass. So we want to make sure that it is viable. We want to make sure that we look at it and it is real. So I'm happy to help you to do that process. If you're a listing agent, bring me your offers and we can help you through that process as well. Again, to help everyone out and earn your business. Our next step in the process here, actually, some documents. I kind of got ahead of ourselves here, but so what we need is your your pay stubs, W-2s. This is what we look for: recent bank statements, tax returns. So if you're a business owner, obviously we need tax return, and any other additional information we'll go through as we go on a case-to-case basis. Our last step in the process before Miguel gets involved here is sending disclosures. So you've got your DU, you've went through the process, you found a home, your buyer loves the home. Now it's time to sign the disclosures for that home. So we'll collect all those documents again, verify them, update those documents, because I might have got a bank statement was from 2 months ago. It took your client an average probably 2 months to find a home now. That client has already came over to us now, presented their updated purchase contract. We collect updated information. I put it all together and send out a disclosure package. Those packages are digital, so it's amazing. You can come to my office and sign them on an iPad. I can send them to you directly, and you can e-sign those online. You'll set up a little portal, and you can actually upload documents to that portal as well. So things that we're missing, I'll let you know, and you can just upload directly to our portal. So it's pretty amazing. So here's just disclose all your finances up front. So again, if you have things going on, and this is the funniest case Miguel dealt with last week, or last month. I had a client who refinanced her car. I've never had this since 2008 that I've been in this business. So a client refinanced her car just before I did the loan approval. So when I pulled the credit, it showed the car was paid off. But the new debt, the new refinance hadn't shown.
Hadn't reported on the credit
Hadn't reported on the credit. So we approved this, for 200, 250, 150,000, because we were like, she doesn't have a $500 car payment. She paid it off. And I said, do you own another car? She goes, no, I just have the one car. Great.
It was just perfect timing.
It was just bad timing. We got through it. She ended up having a car payment. But luckily, we were able to get the loan approved. We were able to still qualify for the DTI, but mistakes do happen. Yep. So, and that was something I've never seen before. She had refinanced her car literally in the process. So it's very important to disclose information. So as a borrower, your borrowers, right, should disclose to us anything weird that's going on, whether going through a divorce, going through a settlement, buying a new car. You should not obviously get any new debt. You might have to sell your car to get approved at this point for some of these loans. But our goal is to try to get you, obviously, the best possible financing.
And I was going to add to what you were saying earlier, that why the reason we kind of skip over the whole pre-qualification phase and go straight to pre-approvals and get everything, as much documentation and everything up front, is because plenty of things pop up in the middle and at the end of the loan already. And the more we can prevent that with having as much documentation up front, the easier the process is going to be and the quicker we can get everybody closed.
Correct. So, and it's a pain because a lot of clients are like, oh, I have to give you so much information. And it's a lot. Sometimes it's a lot, especially if you're a business owner. Your client is expected to provide a lot more information than someone that's standard W-2. And we can go through that again on a one-on-one basis if you do have questions about what your customers need to provide. We do have lists that we could send you so that way you know each individual customer what they do need. And then our next step, once we sign disclosures, and again, this all takes time, everyone, right? So the file comes to me, and let's say you sign a contract on Monday. By the time I get that contract, it's Tuesday. Maybe, right? It's gone through our process, your processing team for partnership. By the time I actually get it's probably about a day later. Or if you signed it on Saturday, I definitely don't get that till Monday or Tuesday. So you've already lost a few days there sometimes, and that's the downfall. So if you have any appraisal contingencies for time, definitely let us know up front. We need to know that because we need to know how much time do we have to order an appraisal. There are rush appraisal options that we can do to make sure the appraisal does come in on time. So just kind of be upfront with us on what you need and what your specifications are for your purchase contract. And if you can let us know prior to signing, it's even easier. So at least now I get to know I need to rush that much faster.
And I would say more so now than ever, just with the way market is, and appraisals are getting, taking longer and longer to get back. So the more, like I said, the more information we have up front, the better decision making we can have, and then obviously that all leads to quick and happy closing. And it takes a lot of time. 2 weeks is about the average now for our appraisal team? 2 to 3 weeks sometimes. About 2 to 3 weeks. So if you need a rush appraisal and it does come in, again, it's just more being upfront. But it does take a couple days for us because then once we get the documents, they get signed. It goes to our opening team. Opening team, they get to now open the file and go over those initial documents and double check everything I turned in, and then it orders the appraisal. That also takes about, a day on average? So it almost takes 5 days, 3 to 5 days, right, on average. Just for the beginning process. Just to kind of get through the beginning process. So again, we're setting expectations for time. We want to let you know is how much time it takes to do some of these events that we have to go through, and it's not as easy as just picking up a phone and calling an appraisal and making them go to the house at a certain date or a certain time. It is a scheduling process. So once the appraisal management company picks up, they then contact an appraiser because we can't contact appraisers up front. We can't just call anyone. So then from there they contact someone and they go to and do the appraisal. From there it takes scheduling time as well. So it gets, again, the time starts going. But in the background, we are processing the file. So we don't wait till the appraisal that comes in to move to the next step on our side. The appraisal is ordered. We go as fast as we can according to, again, your specifications on the contract. And then from there, we go into the final process. We start processing the loan. So this is kind of already reviewed this with you. Again, I'm not kind of going through the whole slideshow here. Appraisal contract, we got that already. Loan processing. So this is where I'm gonna let Miguel kind of lead the way from here, and I'll chime in as we go back and forth. But this is kind of your show now. Miguel's gonna give you the guidelines for processing and how to get that in. Thank you, Derek, for that introduction. Like you mentioned earlier, I'm one of the branch processors at Absolute Home Mortgage here in West Palm Beach. Like I said, this is kind of where I take over the file. It moves from the loan officer getting all the information, collecting all the info, and submitting it over. Once it gets into loan processing, that's where I come in. I reach out directly to the clients. Most times I actually prefer having the clients come in if they can to the office. when I'm collecting initial documents or whatever it is that we need to do. It just kind of opens up the dialogue between us. They can see that it's a real office, that we're here trying to make their lives easier and help them achieve a dream of buying their home. Whereas if it's just all email and phone calls, a lot of times that personal connection can kind of get lost. So as many times as I can. Obviously, it's not realistic with every customer, but I'll try and have them come into the office so they can kind of get an idea of what we're doing for them. But starting off with the loan processing, again, this is just the part where we get the approval from the underwriting department saying that this loan is approved with however many conditions that need to get satisfied so that they can get cleared to close and close on their home. Most of these conditions are pretty standard with every file, obviously depending on the loan program, whether it's FHA, conventional, or if it's non-QM, that they'll have their own kind of stipulations. But for the most part, it's really kind of verifying that everything that they've told us up to this point is accurate and legitimate. They do have the actual assets to close. They need to provide bank statements, depending again on the program. It's either a month or 2 months to show that they have the assets to close, to show that they've had it. If they're receiving any kind of deposits or gifts, we need to make sure and collect more documentation to verify that those transfers or those gifts are legitimate and sourceable. Again, it's ordering insurance quotes. So another part where realtors can kind of get involved is when we're receiving the inspection reports from you guys so that we can order insurance quotes for the clients. It's just kind of going through everything. Like I've mentioned to Derek before, there's a lot of situations where we're handling a lot on the processing side, to where if the realtors, when they're receiving inspections or where the inspections are getting done themselves, because I know some realtors actually like to be there for the inspections, if you notice anything that the inspector's mentioning that looks like it's going to need to get fixed or replaced or anything like that, the sooner we can know about that, the sooner we can jump on top of it, because we've had multiple situations where we get quotes back after we've ordered them with a condition saying that this and that has to get addressed or fixed, whether it's a plumbing leak or a lot of times it can be the electrical panel. Those things need to get done before the policy can even be activated and sent over to us. So again, it's just things that can pop up sometimes that elongate the process. But again, if we know it at the beginning of the process, we can kind of maneuver it in a way where it's not gonna be as detrimental. So again, just one example that realtors can get involved in. What else?
I mean, there's a lot behind the scenes, obviously.
Yeah, it's just a lot. It's a lot behind the scenes that necessarily not every realtor is aware of, just because it's more our stuff that we have to handle. But like at the beginning of the slide, we're all here working together. Obviously, if the file doesn't close, you guys don't get paid. We don't get paid either. So we're all kind of working together to make sure that the client's getting everything they want, which is their dream of buying a home, and we're getting compensated for the work getting that taken care of. So let's see what else we can get into. The underwriting process. Okay, this will be fun. So the other thing, like Derek had mentioned earlier at the beginning as well, is there is maybe not a misconception, but there is an idea that just because the documents that we've been requesting or that we finally get in from either you or the clients, once we receive it, it doesn't immediately mean that we're either going to get a clear to close or it's going to get cleared. Thanks. Or it's going to get cleared, or that the process doesn't take its kind of natural course. As I'm collecting documents, as I'm collecting the items that we need from the customer to verify all the information that they've been giving us, all that has to get submitted and reviewed by a separate department, which is the underwriting department. Every file gets assigned an underwriter. They go through every single document, letter by letter, word for word, to make sure that everything is accurate, legitimate, and that it works with the qualified customer. It works for the loan that the customer is qualified for.
And not all underwriters are the same, and we see that every day. So
exactly.
The expectations from certain underwriters and other underwriters, I mean, we can't tell you enough. We don't get to pick them. And we can tell you that they are in-house. and we are able to get exactly what they require. But every underwriter has their quirks. They're going to have a couple different things that they want to see a little extra, and sometimes we fight and moan and groan about it and want to throw a water bottle across the room. But we do our best to get that done. And if we give the underwriter and understand as everything that you think they're going to need up front. And again, we get all those scenarios, those loan situations. If you tell me you were refinancing your car, if I have all that up front, then we create less headache and they ask us for less things. If you tell me that you have your money underneath your mattress up front, things like that, gifts. I mean, the more information we get up front is the most important part. Once it gets into underwriting, the underwriter sees that you have large cash deposits, for example, in your bank account, it's hard to, step that back. We cannot unsee something they've already seen.
Right, exactly.
That's not part of the process. So that's why it's so important to get all that information up front and go through it. That way we can see what is the best method for getting this approved for you. Again, the process has to be streamlined within the both of us. It's very important for us to communicate with the borrowers, or the borrower, maybe they confide in you and not as much in us for some of those scenarios or situation, but the communication between the realtor and their lender, whoever that may be, is very important.
Super important.
So we want to make sure we communicate.
And more so for your clients, for the borrowers themselves, as much information as we can get up front, that's going to reciprocate to them as well, because I'm going to tell them exactly what we'll need from them up front. Right? But when we're learning new information every week, or something else pops up every week, that's going to require more documentation, extra things that I wasn't aware were going to require that we will now, which again always tends to frustrate the borrower, because they think, all right, I've given you everything you've asked for, now you're asking me for more things. Whereas if I know the entire scenario from the beginning, or if we know the entire scenario from the beginning, we'll know exactly what we'll need. We can ask for everything up front that we'll need from them. And again, it'll make for a happier process and a quicker closing.
I'm not sure if you're going to mention it. On part of that is the underwriting process in our non-QM files. Because a lot of realtors are asking me a lot of questions about time. Our turn times for loans are probably between 21 and 30 days. In-home, that's going to be your standard in-house
government loans,
Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, VA, the standard stuff, right? So our non-QM loans, which is something that Enrique constantly talks about and constantly loves to do, your bank statement programs. We are actually rolling out a bank statement program very soon with Absolute in-house.
I think, if I'm not wrong, Javier told me we had just started it.
It's
a week or two ago.
It's in the process, trial process right now. So hopefully we'll be able to give that to you. So our biggest struggle is time constraints on non-QM loans. So I just want to talk about that real quick in our underwriting process. We have zero control over that. So set the expectation. If you're doing a bank statement program or a stated program, anything that's out of the ordinary that we need to get done, those are pretty much out of our control. They're subjected to underwriters and appraisers, everyone that just doesn't normally work with us. We have access to essentially their representative for their bank or that particular lender, and we have discussions with them, but we're not able to contact an underwriter or contact anyone at that point, or our corporate office in-house and say, hey, can you help me out with the situation? It's a lot more difficult, so it does take time. So the biggest thing is, again, taking that time. It's 45, 60-day process on those loans, so just make sure you guys take a note of that.
It's on both ends too, because it does require more documentation and more things from the borrower himself or herself, but as well, like Derek mentioned, we just don't have that kind of familiarity or control with the way the underwriting process works on a non-QM loan. And even a lot of the procedures that they have are different. For example, I know there's some programs and some banks that won't even order the appraisal until the approval's out. So that time that we can save by getting a lot of processing done and a lot of things taken care of while the appraisal's getting done, we lose that on some programs and at some banks, because they won't even start the ordering process until the full approval's out with conditions and everything like that.
So everybody's different. It's just important to let us know what you're doing. Again, set those expectations for time on your purchase contract and getting with us prior to signing to make sure you set those dates wrong, because we don't want to risk your client's deposits.
Absolutely.
Quality assurance. So we're coming down to an end. So now, Miguel, on your process, the loan is underwritten.
Yep.
It's pretty much our last step in the process. They've already accessed again for another bank statement. They've accessed again for another pay stub. We've given them everything they need. So explain a little bit about the quality assurance process with Absolute.
Yeah, so this usually comes up at the point where we're either submitting for the final review to get a clear to close, or even if the underwriter himself or herself is getting the clear to close worksheet taken care of and filled out on their end. This is basically just kind of they're running through their final checklist of things that need to get verified, things that need to be that are very important to the client, to the customer qualifying for the loan. For example, like you can see here, VOEs, verifications of employment. There's written verifications of employment, and there are verbal verifications of employment. So, for example, part of my job when the file's getting very close to the closing, within a few days of the closing, in fact, I have to reach out directly to their employer, whether that's the person that filled out the form or whether it's an HR person that's their position is to verify income or employment. I'm sorry. And I have to verbally confirm that they're still an active employee at that company because, again, the verifications of employment get done at the beginning because they are something that can take some time to get back from their employers. So we get that taken care of at the beginning. Within those 30 days, within those 45 days, whatever the program is, a lot of things can happen. People can lose their jobs. They can switch jobs. And so I have to verbally confirm that they're still employed at the company that they say they're employed. And then furthermore, the underwriter then also sometimes, as part of the quality assurance, will reach out to that HR or person that verified the employment and make sure that I made that phone call that says that they were still active at the company when I called. So it's a lot of kind of checks and balances and checking ourselves to make sure that everything is accurate, legitimate, and it's just to kind of create more security for you guys and for us as well.
And timeline for this, so I kind of let them know how many days before your clear to close file, are you doing the verification of employment and things like that?
Yeah, so for most of these, a lot of it is within 10 days of the closing, so that gives us some time to do it either right before or there's some time to get it done earlier within those 10 days so that the underwriter still has time to review those things and issue the final clear to close. But for all of these, I would say it's usually within the last 10 calendar days of the process and within the closing.
And part of our closing, obviously, we send out a last closing disclosure.
Right.
So we send that out, and then it takes 3 days from there to actually be able to close your file. So when I do send out, again, this is pretty much a standard for our company, when we do send out our CDs that go out to your clients, we do let you know, because sometimes I do need your help as a realtor to get that file signed. Help me get that document signed.
Right.
Because if they don't sign it today and they sign it tomorrow, now we're delayed another 3 days. So it's 3 days from signing the CDs and we can actually close. Now the CDs, when they go out, they're not always accurate. So sometimes you'll get some crazy closing numbers. Some of the CDs do not even take into account, sometimes they're deposits. So the cash to close number isn't really accurate on that first CD that we send out prior to closing. Once we send out that CD, then it goes to the title company.
Right. From
the title company, they then balance. From there, we'll have an accurate number.
Correct.
But we do need to wait for the title company to balance.
They balance. So the title company will balance the numbers on the closing disclosures with the closing department at our branch or at our company. So once we get the clear to close, or we're getting the clear to close, the closer on our end will reach out to the closer at the title company, and they will go through the entire closing disclosure, making sure that they both match on what should be on there and what shouldn't be on there. So that's why usually as the processor, I'll be the one that reaches out to the customers and lets them know that they either have that in their email or they're going to be receiving it soon or that it needs to get signed. And of course, I always let them know that whatever numbers the loan officer gave them at the beginning of the process, because they go through all of this in really great detail with the borrower so that there's no surprises, whatever those numbers are that they said they're going to be, that's what it's going to be. The closing disclosures, again, a lot of them are templates. A lot of them will just kind of have the standard things in there that are either there or missing that won't necessarily apply to that specific customer or that file that needs to get balanced at the end of the process. But that does not exclude anybody from that 3-day rule that Derek was saying. It needs to get signed at least 3 days before closing for them to be able to close on the day they want to.
So this is all performed, again, not simultaneously in one day. This is performed through the process.
Right.
This is why it takes, at least 20, 21 days, 20 to 30 days, is what is a good average to close in this time in this market.
Right.
So when we're closing a loan, we're doing this throughout the process. So I know a lot of realtors always say, hey, what's taking so long, or what's the holdup? So some of the holdups that I faced, and I'm just kind of touching because I see this VOE, is your verification of employment. And I know Miguel gets very frustrated, and I start calling everyone, and I have realtors call sometimes their people's jobs because we need to get this done. Yeah. I've had people delay a week getting, or someone was, the lady who does the verifications on vacation, and she's the only one who can do it in the whole company. So now I got to wait for her to get back from Disney to get a VOE. So it's very important that you guys, kind of again, the more we get up front, the faster we can order this stuff, the faster it does come in. But there are delays that are out of our hands, and then a lot of times everyone gets disappointed in the process. They're like, it's taking longer, or we should be getting it closed. But sometimes there are delays, and I do try to, at least with my files, I do communicate that with everyone, your borrower and the realtor, to make sure that you guys understand the delays that I'm facing, because it does get frustrating, and we try to avoid that. We want to make sure everyone's happy with it. Some people buying their house for the first time. Yeah. So they want to make sure that the process, they're happy with it, and they have a good good experience, right, through the whole process. We don't want to just shut down and get angry and have a poor experience with our company. So we do. Again, communication is everything, making sure that everything is filled out correctly. The VOEs come back wrong all the time. Yeah. What do you have, like 1 out of 5, let's say, get filled out wrong? What's a good number for you?
I want to say 80% of them, a good 80% of them come back wrong the first time. 80%. It's pretty rare that I get one the first time and everything's filled out properly. There's something missing. All the figures on there look good and work for the loan the way we need it to work.
P&Ls. How about P&Ls for self-employed?
P&Ls, self-employed. Again, like you mentioned earlier, self-employed customers. It's just kind of a nature of the fact that they own their own business. They disclose all that information themselves. There's no one doing that for them. Just extra documentation that we need to get from them, and again, from people that are not necessarily too involved in the process. I was going to mention to you earlier, like the reason verifications of employment, documents that we need from other people that are not the realtor or the client themselves, they don't have the same motivation to get things done quickly or accurately, because they're not the ones involved. They're not the ones buying the home. They're not the ones getting paid commission for the home to get purchased or sold. We all are. So everyone that's involved knows how motivated everybody else is. That wants to get the job done well and quickly. It's just the people that we need documentation from that may not necessarily be as motivated to get it done quickly or accurately is where we hit a lot of the roadblocks and a lot of the delays that we have. So that can be
zero sense of urgency sometimes.
Right. I mean, and like he said, like we're on vacation. Is there no one else that can help out? Nope. There's just things that happen, unfortunately, where people are not motivated by what's going on to make it done, get it done quickly and effectively. Sometimes it's a rare occasion where we do, like for your file. For the new construction, where I had to get the VOE.
Yes.
I had to get a verification of employment fixed, basically, because it kept coming in wrong 5 times within the span of 2 or 3 days.
5 tries, yeah. 5 tries.
But the lady was really nice. She knew the borrower really well because she worked with him every day, and she was more than happy to put in the effort to make sure he got everything right so he could buy his home. But again, we're not lucky like that every single time.
They start rounding numbers. They're like, you don't need the pennies. They'll start
like, no, we need everything.
Round numbers. No, so there are things that, again, people think that it's okay to do on some of these documents, and they're not. And Miguel's here, and he's amazing at his job to make sure that those go through easily. And we double check them. So
Yeah.
it's I want to kind of again reiterate that every time is we are not sitting for 30 days to close a loan on purpose.
Right.
We do not want to take 30 days. I want to close it in 10. The
If we
faster
could,
I
yeah.
close, the faster we both get paid. But it does take time to process all this information, and having amazing employees like Miguel is how this stuff gets done. So we go right into the closing now.
Just the closing.
Our last step here.
Not really much to add. I know in the class we did previously, I do remember saying that I just like reminding the realtors that a lot of the documents that the customer is signing at the closing table, I want to say again, like 80 or 90% of them, they've already signed before when we sent out the disclosures. A lot of it is like the application, the permission to pull their taxes, the permission to pull their transcripts. A lot of the things that they've already electronically signed at the beginning of the process, the title company just needs a wet signed copy of it. Right, and then there's obviously things like the closing disclosures and the ALTA and the mortgage note that they're signing for the first time. But a bulk of that documentation they've already signed. So I've had to sit in on a few closings where the borrowers are a little hesitant or they're just kind of questioning everything and they don't really realize that it's something they've already taken care of and signed.
Right. And a great thing we came out this year is our hybrid closing. We are actually able to sign half of that package before you leaving your house to the closing company.
Right.
So a lot of that stuff, the same DocuSign that you did earlier, the same e-sign, we're able to do prior to going to the closing. So you're not signing 100 documents there anymore.
Right.
You're signing about 10 or 15, the more important ones
really
that need
important
wet
ones,
signatures.
yeah, exactly.
So the items that need wet signatures will get a wet signature, and the rest of it's already pre-signed now. So it's very simple process. The closer will likely go through all the documents again with you, but you'll be able to sign those things quickly now. So no more, hour and a half hour closing to sign 100 documents and explain I think my first closing when I bought my house, it was a solid 45 minutes of trying to figure out. It is a lot of signing. So now we're able to get half that process out of the way. We get a lot of the documents signed up front for the closing. So we just need a couple wet signatures and you're on your way to owning a home.
Exactly.
Our next slide, clear to close, yes. And that concludes our presentation.
That's pretty much everything.
We went through the process, from start to finish. Again, I think our biggest takeaway from here is time. We want to make sure that you guys are considering this process. And this process does not happen overnight. It is a lengthy process that takes a lot of time. There's a lot of human error that goes into this when it comes to filling out documents correctly for us. Thankfully, Miguel, again, and our processing team at Absolute are able to go through that before it gets to the underwriter. Because, again, there is no turning back once it gets to the underwriter. And
once they see it, they see it.
They see it. They don't unsee it. That does not happen.
Yeah.
I think the last biggest thing is, I want to mention real quick before we go is, day of closing when we're like, oh my God, I'm missing a document to close. I need this to close. I need it clear to close. And I could have said that a couple of slides back. When we resubmit something to an underwriter, again, I want to set that expectation, everyone. It is not, I don't just text it to an underwriter and she clears a file. It does need to go from my hands to Miguel's hands. He checks it, then goes to our upload system that goes then to an underwriter, and it goes back in line.
It goes into a queue.
A queue. So we are able to put a rush on that queue, which it kind of flashes on the underwriter screen until they do see it. But like anything else, it does take time. So just because someone had given me a document for a rush, we're trying to rush and get it closed the same day, or we need something that quick, it is still a process to go through it. And that's our biggest thing is this is not I can't just text a condition to an underwriter. That doesn't happen.
Or even
that
email.
way.
We can't even email it to them.
We can't even email
it has to go through
directly.
the proper channels.
Got to go through the system, and you would think it would be a lot faster, but it is a process. It goes from Miguel to the underwriter, so it does take time. So again, our takeaway is just, give us time. That way we know to set our expectations. Communicate with us what you need, and we'll make sure we deliver and get your file clear to close so we both can get paid and make money.
Absolutely. I'll just add one more thing. We have this kind of process set in place where the processors kind of go through everything before it gets submitted to the underwriters, almost kind of almost like a filter for all the documents, just to make sure that once we submit something, 90% of the time it's going to be exactly what they need and exactly what the loan needs. Whereas if you're just submitting everything that you get to underwriting, that's more time wasted while the file is in submittal, while the file is in the queue waiting for the underwriter to review it, where a lot of the times we already know the guidelines, we know exactly what's needed, and a lot of times it's just through experience from previous files where we run into similar situations, we can kind of filter through all that stuff. So instead of having to submit a file 4 or 5 times, it's twice, you know, the initial and then the last one, and then we'll get the clear to close and things like that. And the last thing I'll mention is more from my personal experience as the processing side of the file is you guys, the realtors, you guys have your own individual clients. The loan officers have their own individual clients and pipeline that they have to work. A lot of times the processors, and I'm sure on your side, the transaction coordinators, we have everyone's clients. So at any given point, we're not just working on 3 or 4 people's files, we're working on 20 or 22 or 25. So again, that will also add to the kind of setting the expectation in terms of timelines and how quickly things get done. It's you know, it's a process. Everyone has their own way of kind of getting through everything. I like making lists and crossing things off once it's done. But you know, just another thing that I figured I'd mention in there.
Yeah, of course. And I appreciate. Thank you for coming. Thank you for
having me
with us. I appreciate everyone online who's tuned in. And if you guys have any question, you can call us directly, email us directly, shoot us a text message or whatever I can do. And thanks for everyone who came out to our class today. My information, is it on here at the end?
No, it's at the beginning.
Oh, it's at the very beginning. We'll go back through it. I'll leave it up here so you guys have it. And a lot of slides we had today.
Here we went through a few.
I went through as fast as we could, but here's my contact information. I'll put it back up again. And boom.
There we go.
So here's my contact information one more time, guys. Again, I thank you for coming out. Thank you for tuning in. If you guys have any questions, this is our contact information.
Questions, scenarios, you know, we deal with those all the time. We've gone through so many things that if you have something weird or specific that you're going through or you need just help how the guidelines affect that, you know, we're here. You can call us, email us, and we'll help you out.
All right. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.